Welcome to episode 54 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine.
And Kristen, where we believe there is nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So we're sort of moving into a new type of question today. We're
Which I
gonna
love.
I know. We used to play it all the time when we were like young and at parties. So we're gonna do a little question of like a would you rather.
I love it.
So this question is like it's a super cool question, I think. Would you rather bring your favorite character into like our world and be friends with them, or be brought into your favorite character's world but never meet them?
This one's just cruel on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because, A, who's your favorite character? How are you supposed to even come up with that?
Yeah.
That part alone, very hard.
Yeah.
And then after you get past that, you have to answer the question.
Yeah.
I think I do know the answer to this though. Like my favorite character is Celaena Sardathian. She is the love of my life, and I just love her. But I think I'd have to pick the second one, that I would go into her world but never meet her, solely because I feel like she would be too feral for this world.
Oh, okay.
Like if I brought her into this world, I don't think she would cope well with like a 9 to 5. That's not, no, it's kind of twofold. So it's like I don't think she'd cope well with our world and everything that's in it.
She might be able to straighten it up though.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you do have a point there. But I also think that like I'd like to live in her world because obviously magic and shit. And then I also think it would be fun to be like, how, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a character in the later on books, and he's part of, I'll say, a cadre. And he just never shows up again and is just running around the entire book. And there's like a whole bunch of jokes about it in the fandom. And I'm like, I love him and the idea of him so much that I'm like, I would just go find him.
And you could run around together.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. Yeah. So I think that's my answer. It would be the second one. I'd go into a magical world, which I think we're probably going to be on the same page, to be honest.
So yes and no, because you're very right in that it all predicates on who you're picking as your favorite character. So
yes. Are you picking a boy?
Well, so this is the thing.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of picking a boy.
That's it, right? Like if you want to pick like a love interest as your favorite character, then obviously you would want to bring them into your world so that you could be together.
Yeah.
Like significant others aside.
Obviously, this is a would you rather. It's not real world rules don't matter.
Yeah. So like, if I were to pick, I don't even know who I would pick. Like
Reese.
say if I did maybe more on the yeah. I know people are problematic about Reese, but I can't help it.
Like, yeah. But like there's still, I'm problematic about every one of them, and that's the reason why I love them so much, is because they do have their issues. Same with Celaena has her fucking issues too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, so I would totally, so if I were say to pick Reese, then yeah, of course I would want him in our world so that we could quote unquote be together.
Yeah. I
But
would he have all of his powers though?
well, this is that. Well, then that's another thing to
Yeah.
consider too. Like, would he continue to have his magic? Would he bring magic with him into our non-magic world?
Yeah. I would assume that he would be everything he is and would
Yeah.
bring it here. Because if he doesn't have the power, is he as attractive? No, like it's like
No. Maybe I
he'd
should
lose
cut
all
that.
of. Yeah, I know. Maybe you should, but I don't know if you should.
uh,
But like, if
uh,
he doesn't have his power, then is he still the same person? Like, I
yeah,
don't think he would be the same anymore. I think like his personality would change. Like, he wouldn't
100%.
be able to have as much confidence, obviously, for one thing.
Yeah. No, you're right.
At the very least, confidence would be out.
Yeah, that's true.
So you'd kind of be a different person.
And then you also have to think about, well, okay, if you are going into their world, what are you going in with? Are you going in as you? If you're going into a magical world, will you develop magic when you get there because it is a world of magical creatures?
Yeah,
Or are you just going to stay humany human? Also, what circumstance are you going to be brought into that world as? Like, are you going to go in as like a poor sucker who like has to eat dirt all the time, like
yeah,
because you have no money, or are you gonna be like in a decent circumstance? If I could choose the circumstance, then maybe I would that would sort of be my requirement for
yeah,
picking to come into their world, is I would want to pick my circumstance.
yeah. I get that. So have you watched? Is it called The Dragon Prince on Netflix? Like the
Mm-mm,
cartoon?
mm-mm.
Well, never mind
Sorry.
that. It's okay. So in this cartoon that is actually for kids, like my sister's kids watch it, but I also watched it
Mm-hmm,
before they did because it was cute.
mm-hmm.
But one of the characters in it can do magic, but it's like humans aren't supposed to do magic. She's doing it through like taking power from magical beings. And I'm like, so bad, but also I would be one of those queens. We talked about it in the Akatar episode. I would be. I can only do so much. Can only do so much. And I would do anything to get power, probably in one of
Yeah.
those worlds. So,
Yeah. If I saw other people with it, I would want it so bad. Like
oh
I
my
would
God.
do a lot
Yeah.
to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like I didn't really answer the question. I just hypothesized a lot,
Well,
but
that's fair.
I just like I would need to, because at the same time too, my answer is different again based on which character. Like Elizabeth Bennet, I would be so much more,
Oh, bring her here.
yeah, right? Like
100%.
100%.
We'd be besties. We'd sit down, we'd
Yes.
have tea together. I'd give her my spare room. Like,
Yes,
tell
you'd be
Darcy
like,
to go fuck off. Stay with
bitch,
me.
you don't have to get married anymore. You
Exactly.
could be a strong independent woman, be an author or something like that.
You can be friends with Darcy. The funny thing about that, though, is I would bring Darcy
Mm.
as like no, it probably would be as a love interest, but I would bring Darcy as a love interest forward instead of Elizabeth.
Oh yeah.
No, not Elizabeth as a, but out of that book, I would bring him forward. I would never think to bring Elizabeth forward, which is funny because my immediate reaction to this question was Celaena Sardathian
Mm-hmm.
to go into her world because she's my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which, like, her love interest in the end is my favorite of the SJM men,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not my favorite character of this series,
Right.
which I also kind of love. Like, I like that my character that I love in this series is the strong woman who is like doing shit herself.
I would choose. I just like, I don't know, man. If you're choosing to go back, you got to be okay with literally never ever meeting them.
Yeah,
ever.
but
Never
if
crossed
I
paths.
went back, I could meet her
Lo-
her love interest.
Steal him away.
maybe maybe I'm his first. maybe I went back and that's what happened.
Oh dear.
right?
Oh God. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Good
we'll
question.
thanks. We'll do some more of these.
Yeah, they're good ones. And I like maybe next time I'll bring one that you don't know. Spring it
Ooh.
on you. We'll
Okay.
see.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna get into it. So just a heads up, we are not a spoiler-free zone, and things could get a little saucy.
Yeah, so this week we are reading chapters 11 to 20 of Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. Last week we did have a pretty big cliffhanger. But before that, Celaena and Chaol had an argument about Celaena leaving in a sexy dress. So she implied that she was going to spend the night with Archer and stormed out because no one can have a fucking adult conversation. But anyway, her meal with Archer was pleasant and full of flirting and some sexual tension. And then in the carriage, after he invited her in, she told him the king sent her to kill him. So,
I feel like that would put a damper on sex.
really, though, really
Yeah.
puts a damper on the evening. So, we're obviously in Celaena's head still. So she just kind of thinks that like Archer's training at the Assassin's Keep must have paid off because he like I think he gets like a knife out and defends himself well after she says that she was sent to kill him.
Right.
And he starts to plead with her and he says he can pay her. And like before she can even say anything else along the lines of like I'm not actually killing people, you don't need to worry,
Mm-hmm.
he like starts giving stuff up. um he says he isn't part of the movement, he would never be a traitor, but he can tell her about a group he knows that is starting to gain power in Rifthold. And he says that this group knows the king is planning a new horror for them all, and they want to stop the king, obviously. And he's heard his clients speak of it, and the group wants to put Aelin Galathinius on Terrasen's throne because she is apparently the lost heir of Terrasen. And Celaena's heart kind of like stops during this moment. She is a bit in shock, but she also just tells him Aelin Galathinius is dead. And he says this group doesn't think so. She's apparently, Aelin is, raising an army against the king. And she's finding what's left of King Orlan's, who is the old king of Terrasen's, inner circle. And Celaena knows that this can't be true. Like, if any of them have claimed to meet Aelin, they've lied. And this is an interesting.
I wonder why she's so sure, Catherine.
I don't know why she's so sure. I don't know. But she is very sure. And she's just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And she's also like very anxious about this whole thing, that I think
Mm-hmm.
she misses some clues in general. But she also kind of wonders if it's a coincidence that Nehemia brought up Terrasen when she was talking to her today. But Nehemia promised to never lie to her. So she thinks like it must just be a coincidence. And
Mm-hmm.
she kind of like pushes down any hope that she had from hearing about this rebellion. And finally, she just tells Archer that like she isn't planning on killing him. And she just planned like they're going to have to fake his death. Um, and they can either do that now and he can flee by the morning, or he can have till the end of the month to get like his shit together, get some money out of wherever it is. And as long as he feeds her information on this group that he's talking about, then she'll give him till the end of the month to basically fake his death and have him run away.
Here's something that I don't get. Like, if he could easily pack up his stuff and flee, wouldn't he have done it by now? Like, he's indebted and is forced to be a prostitute. I don't
Yes.
understand if it was so easy as her saying, "Flee, grab your stuff and flee." If it was that
Yeah.
easy, wouldn't he have done it before?
But I think the difference is like the king's assassin is killing him. So if she goes looking for him, like he's dead to the crown. So I think it's a bit I think that holds a bit of sway. I don't know
Mm.
how deaths come out, like how they tell people that people have died in this world, but I just feel like it would be easier to run away if it's like the king's champion killed me. You probably shouldn't say that though,
Yeah,
because
I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be like a secret
yeah,
position, isn't it?
yeah, I don't really. But then everybody else that she's killed, people find out about. So you'd think, like, obviously, like she's killed kings and shit, not kings, but like lords and shit. So
But I wouldn't have think it came out. Oh yeah, no, it did. You're right.
yeah, because Kale was like,
Mm-hmm.
it was caught. So I don't really know.
Hmm.
I don't understand. Yeah, but he's also like, yeah, my money is caught up in stuff. I need the month, which is fair. It would take me longer than a night to get out of this house.
Well, like realistically, you would only be able to take like a duffel bag. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, but you'd have to like go to the bank and get all your money into like onto a card for us, but for them, I don't think you can do cards. So you'd just have a duffel bag full of gold, and someone would steal it.
That's true.
Unfortunate. Anyway, Archer kind of laments to Celaena that he wishes he could be the type of man to rebel,
What?
which just makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
Mainly because in every book we read, it's always the teenage girl that's like, I'm carrying this rebellion on my back. I'm like, you're a fucking man. You can
Yeah.
rebel.
Yeah. It's true though. It is always the woman's job to friggin' do the rebellion.
Yeah, because nobody will think a woman's going to do it, but it's always a woman, and nobody ever thinks it's going to be. It's foolish. Um, and Celaena kind of sees how weak he was in that moment where he was like so terrified of her, and all she thinks of is how Chaol saw what kind of man that Archer was right away. I don't really think that's fair.
No.
I think that's just her rose colored glasses, which, like, fine, fine. But also, and I know, like, I don't love Archer by any means. I thought he was creepy last week, and in a few weeks' time, I want to stab him in the eye. But
Mm-hmm.
comparing him to Kale, I think it's a lose lose.
But like at the same time, like what did he even say last week? He was just like, I'm jealous. I don't like that he calls you
Exactly.
Leia. Like he doesn't say anything about his character.
No,
He just is like, oh, I don't like that you talk to him.
I
So
don't
it's
like
like,
him as a person because you find him attractive and you are like flustered around
mm,
him.
yeah. So like, what was he right about?
Nothing.
That's just her being like, oh.
It's rose colored glasses towards Kale. Like she is
Mm,
falling for him, which I also appreciate that she has her faults as well. Like
this one.
this is a fault. Exactly. Um, so Archer then tells her that there's a ball at his client's mansion house. And this client has been talking about the movement. Um, and it's like tomorrow night, basically. And he can sneak her in so that she can get more information. And when she like basically is like, yeah, do that. And then she goes back to the castle and she goes to see Kale.
Of course she did.
And I'm like, she went there solely to be like, hey, I didn't stay out and fuck Archer. Like that's the only reason she went over there.
But I mean, to be fair, it's like it's actually kind of nice of her to do it because, like, I probably wouldn't have.
It is nice of her, especially since she's realized that she has feelings. Well, kind of realized that she has feelings for him. So
Yeah,
I guess
she's
it's mature, but I wouldn't have done it because I'm not mature. I'm a
nope.
petty bitch.
Me too. Samesies though. I literally would have been the same. I would have been like, no, because I am really petty and grudgy, and I would have completely done whatever I could to make him feel like shit.
I would have stayed on Archer's couch.
Yeah.
I would have walked the streets all night. Like she's had worse nights. I would have come back and been like, glorious night, so tired, need to go to bed. What a life I lead. So I guess her reason for going there is to tell Chaol what she's learned. And I'm like, why is she telling him anything? Because like I get he's the captain of the guard, but she's the king's champion, aka assassin. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's supposed to kill Archer. It's not
Mm-hmm.
not really her job to find out any of this shit.
No.
I don't really understand. I feel like they're trying to build up this working relationship more than it needs to be so that they need to spend more time together. It's like in the first one where he was like, I need to debrief you. And you're like, ugh,
That just sounds sexual.
it does sound sexual. But anyway.
I mean, I guess if you're saying it to a dude, it could be sexual because you could debrief like
Oh, I don't think I debrief Cole.
Chaol?
Chaol. Yeah, I don't think I debrief Chaol.
No, me neither.
I'm sure he is fine, but he's just so mundane by the end.
Yes.
That is my biggest. Well, I don't even think that's my biggest issue. I think I have many more issues starting in Queen of Shadows. But anyway, um, so yeah, she talks to him about what she's learned, and he tells her to be careful again. And they finally like have the conversation that I've been talking about since last week, like about she thinks he doesn't believe she can do her job, and he's like, I just care about you. And she's like, oh, it's not, you're not thinking I'm a piece of shit. You actually like me as a person, which, like, you can completely understand why she feels that way when you look at her past. Like, she hasn't had parents for a very long time. She hasn't had unconditional love. She's had somebody who the brief glimpses that we've gotten of him are not great.
No.
At the very least. So I do get what she's saying. Like, and I do get why she doesn't immediately think that somebody being like, be careful, is because they like her instead of like, oh, you're shit at your job. So that night, Celaena goes to the ball with Archer, and she's in a beautiful white swan dress and mask. And Archer tells her that Arobin, who I literally just spoke about, is the king of the assassins and used to train her. And Lysandra, who is a courtesan that apparently Celaena hates and almost killed the last time that she saw her, won't be there. So Celaena is kind of happy about that because she doesn't want to run into either of them again. And Archer is also obviously at this ball, and he's dressed as a wolf,
Love it.
which leads into Davis is the ball thrower.
He throws balls.
He does, and he's throwing this ball. All you can think about is balls. I know. God.
I feel like I'm like 12 years old laughing at the ball thrower. Like
I'm twofold on this. One part of my brain is like, if you're a shifter, can you shift that? And the other part of my brain goes to Psych, when they were like, the policeman's balls. The policeman ball tonight. And then Lassie is like, the police don't have balls. I told the joke badly, but it was funny if you watch it.
Yeah.
So Archer tells Celaena about overhearing some plans, and she realizes that this group only wants to profit off of like a war, and the only reason that they're looking to have like get Aelin Galathinius on their side is so that they have a queen who owes them, and they don't care about Terrasen. And like that really pisses Celaena off because she cares about Terrasen.
Mm-hmm.
It's her hometown as well. And Archer says that apparently this group has also saved people, though. Like they hear about, I guess, people going to the gallows and then rescue them, I assume. So, like, they aren't all bad. Like, they're, I guess, more like regular people.
Yeah.
There's good and bad. But Archer helps Celaena sneak into Davis's office, and they're pretending that they're like making out, going down the hallway, trying to find a private room. And after part of this book, I'm like, is this a trap? Is this on purpose? Do you have thoughts on that? Like, is Archer?
I don't know. That's a really good question because you would think. I don't know.
Yeah. The only reason I don't think it is because of how surprised Davis is.
No, 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 but I was thinking you just meant is Archer. I thought I could see Archer setting her up for this.
Yes, but I just
And
thought that he might be, he just didn't tell.
yeah.
Yeah, that could be a thing too. Yeah. It's interesting. Anyway, so she gets into the office and she's looking around, and everything in the office looks normal until she sees a book with a word mark on it. And like there's a word mark on the spine, and then she looks inside and it's full of word marks. And then there's a quote in it that says, "It is only with the eye that one can see rightly."
Which eye?
Interesting. Exactly. And she hears footsteps coming and she looks to the window, but it's too small for her dress to fit through. And it's also too high for her to just jump out of. So the door opens and Davis comes in, who owns the office, and she acts like a bumbling girl looking to get some air. And she tells him that like the housekeeper let her in, and he steps toward her and mentions a ladies powder room on the first floor. And like I love I love her in this moment because she's like she's almost annoyed with how easily she can like fake cry,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of love it. But she thinks that he's gonna like take her to the powder room now. But he pulls out a knife and she like notices at the last second, but before she can disable him and like wrestle him basically to the floor, he slices her forearm a tiny bit, and he tells her that no one has the key to this office except him, and he asks what she was looking for. And she goes to knock him out and like try to sneak out, but he chuckles and asks if she wants to know what was on the blade. And I think she just realizes that it's Gloriella, which is the same poison she was given the night that Sam died, um, and that she was given to the King's men and then obviously brought to the mines. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, Gloriella is a temporary like a poison that gives you temporary paralysis. And she says it's probably so that Davis's men can question her. And she says the Gloriella is working faster than she expected, and that he's a better fighter than she thought, but she still slits his throat. And then she cuts the bottom of her dress off and she goes out the window. And she says she doesn't know how she gets to the ground because earlier she said it was too high,
Mm.
but she does. And the guards yell out when they see her, but she runs toward the castle and she steals a cloak along the way and wipes the blood off her face. And she goes into a side entrance so she doesn't attract too much attention, because she knows she needs to tell someone the poison's name so that they can get the antidote. But the poison is working really fast. And she gets to the door and her cloak is gone and she sways. And, and then she sees Chaol open the door and she says Gloriella right as she passes out.
Yeah. So she had enough like strength and energy, and like the poison didn't work that fast, where she could fight some guy and kill him, climb out the window and down, walk through the streets, have enough forethought to grab a cloak and like wipe the blood off her face so that she's not scaring the citizens, go in the side door of the castle, find Chaol's bedroom, knock on it, and then say Gloriel before she passes out.
Yeah.
It's a very strong, it's a huge strength of character right there.
Yeah. And Chaol sees her and all the blood on her dress, and he panics and just cuts her dress off of her, trying to find. I
Woo!
know. I'm like, that seems not great.
Steamy. No, we have a consent issue here, people. She's passed out.
Yeah,
We
I
can't
don't think you
consent.
should. I don't think you should rip her dress off while she is passed out.
But I guess
Um,
at the
no,
same time, this is a like,
yes,
it's
he thinks that
medical.
it's her blood. He thinks like she obviously slit some guy's throat and got blood all over her. So
Mm-hmm.
he thinks that that is her blood. I understand why he did it, but I would feel awkward about it afterwards. But maybe she wouldn't because she's gone through probably much worse. So, and she loves her body. So
Yeah.
fuck it. If she's fine with it, I'm fine with it. Anyway, um, so yeah, he cuts her dress off trying to find her wound, and he realizes after checking her over that it's not her blood, and he finally remembers the word that she like whispered right before she passed out. Obviously, was Gloriella. And he brings her to her room and holds her while like the antidote works and she vomits. And he tells his guard to go to town and figure out like what happened. And they come back and say a businessman was killed by his own poison dagger. And Chaol thinks he's glad that this man is dead because if he wasn't, he would have killed Davis himself.
Mm.
And I'm like, really? Like you have so much guilt over killing Cain, who was evil, period. And you're just going to kill this businessman because he found someone in his office? Like, defended his home?
But
Don't live
like,
in Texas.
also, like, they're not even together yet,
Yeah,
and he's already threatening to kill people on her behalf.
yeah, something. Um, so Celaena wakes up and we're back in her point of view, and Chaol is sleeping in a chair next to her. And he asks her, um, basically, he asks, hey, exactly what I found out happened. Is that what happened? And she's like, yeah, wow, you're quick,
Yeah.
basically. Um, and he says he won't tell the king because he doesn't want to argue that she's still capable of her job. And I'm like, I find that interesting. I'm like, she killed a potential traitor. She got away. Yes, he got a swipe in, but she was fine. I don't really understand why the king wouldn't think she was capable of her job.
I don't know. I feel like any slip up for her is like an X against her.
Well, yeah, but you'd think that like people who were her friends wouldn't be like, I'm not going to tell the king this time. I don't know.
That's true.
And he also says he's going to send her to the dungeons next time she does something like this because she scared him so much.
Blech.
Which is like, there's better ways to express your feelings than threatening to send someone to the dungeon. Um,
Or better yet, sending them to the dungeon.
yeah,
Just don't do that at all.
Exactly.
Don't think about it, don't do it.
Agreed. Uh, she kind of thinks how she barely remembers getting to the castle, but she knew she needed to get to someplace safe, so she went to Chaol, and that's where she was the safest.
Blech.
Exactly. Um, then Celaena, I guess, after she's feeling better, goes to the library, and she's more afraid than she wants to admit. So she's kind of like armed to the teeth after she saw the creature thing outside the doors. And she wants to see if she can figure out anything about the book from Davis's office. The library size is really overwhelming. Like, I didn't understand how big it was until this moment. Because she kind of talks about like how there's like Chaol once said there was a second library underneath, and she decides that she's going to follow the perimeter of the library to see if there are any passages or anything, like if the rumor could be true. And she kind of remembers the day in the Throne of Glass book when she and Chaol were at a desk and she felt something under her boots. And at the time, Chaol was trying to scare her, but she says she did feel something too. And she gets to a corner, and the sconces aren't lit on the back wall, but there is a torch there. And at this point, we jump point of view, and Dorian jerks awake, and he says his room is frigid, and he was having a nightmare of teeth and shadows and glinting daggers, and the room is already warming up. And he figures the nightmare is because Chaol told him about what happened to Celaena. And he goes to change, but when he looks back, he swears he can see a faint ring of frost around where he was lying. But when he looks
Hmm.
closer, it's gone.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yes.
And just a very like tiny scene with some information, and then we just jump back to Selena's point of view, and she hears the clock and realizes she's been here for 3 hours just going around the perimeter of the library. And I'm like, how big is this library? It has to be ginormous. If you're walking around the perimeter, you're nowhere near anywhere and you're there for 3 hours. But she's about to give up, and she notices a tapestry, and the first art she see it's the first art that like she's seen on this back wall, and it's red so dark it looks black, and it depicts nothing, and behind it there's a door. She said there's a groove along the wall and a lantern, that she tips the lantern to let the oil go into the groove and then lights it with a torch.
Mm. That's very smart.
It is, it's cool. I'm like, it's a cool thing to leave there. um Anyway, the walls are apparently covered in paintings of battles. So Celaena goes down the stairs and she sees a torch covered in cobwebs. So obviously, no one's been down here in a while,
Mm-hmm.
unless they can see in the dark, which is just spooky.
Ooh. I was just about to say, like, maybe they brought a flashlight, but those don't exist.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they took out their iPhone and turned on their flashlight app.
Oh my god.
That's funny. So she obviously picks up the torch and lights it so that she can see what the hell she's doing. She
How does
says,
she light it though?
because she just lit the like at the top of the stairs. She poured oil in that thing and then lit it with
Oh,
hers. So she lights it off that, I assume.
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Um,
say.
I'm just like motioning for like up and down. I'm like, everyone can see what I'm doing, right? No.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, she says that the hallway is like lined with bookcases and it's full of books and scrolls. And she looks at some of them and realizes that they're like castle records from like ages ago.
Cool.
It is kind of cool. I know. I think I'd spend more time there than she does because she
Mm.
just moves right along. So she sees another hallway to the left that has the same kind of groove that you put oil in and light. So she lights that, and it lights the wall, I guess, above it. And it depicts a forest with fae. And she kind of thinks to herself, like, the king can't know that this is down here, or it would be defaced by now, because obviously he's anti-magic, anti-fae.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's likely, she thinks, that the king hasn't come down here. She wonders if Gavin built the castle like in this spot for a reason, like if there's meaning to it. And I honestly don't think that this is ever brought up again, like that I can think of.
No, but I also feel like, is she reading too much into it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, did he build it here in this exact spot for a reason? I'm like, no, it was probably just easy for him to build it off of that. And like, we sort of already see it's an extension of the library.
yeah,
So like, like
yeah.
I
It is
just don't.
probably. So the issue with reading Sarah J Maas books is I then read too far into everything because
Yeah.
everything's a clue. So then
Yeah.
I'm like, does this mean something? But like, we've read the books and I don't think it ever comes up really again.
No.
So yeah, I get it. I get that she goes too far into things because I do too.
Yeah.
um so she goes through like a bunch of doors and goes through the hallway, and then there's like one impenetrable door at the end of this hallway, and it's iron. And then we get a bit of information on iron and magic, because iron is apparently immune to magic, which
Which
is
I find hilarious
why.
because, so like, the Fae in this world function very similarly to the Fae in A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they portray magic in this world. And as we've seen in A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury so far, iron does shit all,
Yeah, that's really interesting.
right? But in this world, iron actually is a preventative for magic. So
Yes.
it's just funny how she's like switching it up.
Yeah. Um, but then we get a bit about the magic in this world, and Celaena just is thinking about it, but she thinks that people believe that magic originated from the gods, despite the king's claims that the magic was an affront to the divine. So, like, that's the king's whole thing. He's like, magic is like spitting in the face of the gods, nobody can use it, type thing.
Mhm.
It's bad, which is like silly, I think.
But I mean,
Uh,
it's the natural progression of, not progression of like religion, but like,
Regression, yeah.
it's like when you have somebody in power that wants to take power away from people just for the sake of it, a lot of
Hmm.
times the excuse that this is sort of the excuse they give. Like, we're not meant to do this, like, oh, it's bad. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
completely.
it's a very common thing in our society when really it's just people don't want other people to have power or to
Yeah.
have like autonomy.
It's kind of like we saw this in the Grisha verse with like the Druskella going after Grisha because they're witches and they shouldn't have power, type of thing, because the Druskella were
Mhm.
very religious. And it's like, it's also kind of relevant to the world and history in general, because like obviously people that have power, if there's one tyrant that wants the power, he'll do anything he can to say that they're bad people and they shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Anyway, so not surprising, but she also says that apparently magic in this world has like countless variations. Like there's healing, shape shifting, summoning, flame, water, or storms. I guess that can help growth of crops and plants and glimpses of the future. And she says like on and on. Like there's a bunch of different kinds of magic in this world, which is
Mhm.
really cool.
Mhm.
Um, and she says that most of the gifts have had become watered down over the millennia, though. So I guess like marrying into people that don't have magic, obviously magic isn't going to be as large,
Mhm.
powerful, not large. Uh, and then she also says for some, like the like with really strong magic, the iron in their blood could cause fainting or worse. which is kind of crazy. Like, you'd think that your body wouldn't be working against you.
No.
It-
And we have to think about, so again, like thinking of later books when we're introduced to like Maeve and all that, like, do Fae have iron in their blood?
yeah. But then you're also
And
thinking like the iron teeth. Witches have iron teeth and iron nails. Like, is that so that they can attack magic people easier? But do they not have any magic in their bones as well? Like, it's because they do have magic.
not right now, but they do,
Yeah, like when,
right?
yeah, they're
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Everything is
Hmm.
interesting. And like maybe the iron teeth aren't are are immune to iron because they have it in them. Would make sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Celaena finds it odd that there is an iron door in this castle. Because like, what is it there for? The only use for iron really is against magic. So she's like, is it to keep someone in there? Is it to keep people out? Like, what is happening? So she obviously tries to open the door, which I kind of think is dumb, but she does. But the handle won't budge, and there's no keyhole in it. She says the amulet warms up and lights up, and she looks through the gap under the door and sees a shadow that's darker than the blackness beyond it. And she angles her dagger kind of to like puts it under the door and angles it so that she can see the reflection. And she
Hmm.
says she sees two eyes, but she convinces herself it's an animal. Like, is
Of
it an
course she
animal?
does.
Yeah. She decides that like she'll get through the door later and get answers. So I guess that's good. Maybe we'll get some answers later, but not right now. Um, at dinner that night, the Great Hall is packed because apparently Rena Goldsmith is performing to honor Prince Holland's return. And Celaena's like excited to see her perform. I think she said that she'd seen her before and it's like just a moving experience. So she ends up sitting with Chaol and some of his guards, and they're kind of wary of her, which is probably smart of them, but just kind of
Hmm.
interesting. Um, and Reese is one of Chaol's guards, and he was in the last book too. But he just seems like a good guy. Anytime he comes up, I'm like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He helped Chaol when like she was poisoned with Gloriella. Um, so she ends up kind of joking around with Chaol and Reese, and then Ress. I think it's Ress, not Reese. Um, yeah, they joke around
You
a
got
bit.
you got your mind on Reese.
I know. I was like, that can't be. They can't be pronounced the same. There's no way she'd do that. So it is Ress. Yeah. Anyway, so the guards end up relaxing a bit around her. Um, Rena goes up to perform, and the, she's performing with a harp and a violin. And Celaena thinks when she sings, like the whole world fades. So Celena's really, I think we've already talked about like the main characters and their attractions to arts. So Celena's
Hmm.
is music. She's like a huge fan of music. She likes to play it. She's struggling to play it right now because she's upset, obviously, over many
Yeah,
hardships of her life.
in the last book, didn't we get a scene where Dorian sort of interrupts her playing
Hmm.
and asks her to keep going, and she says no way.
Yeah.
So like she's really has this affinity to piano playing and that sort of thing, and like it really helps her express herself. But yeah, she's struggling to do it.
Yeah. So Rena then says that her next song is in honor of the esteemed royal family who invited her there tonight. And Celaena says the song is an old poem that she hasn't heard since childhood. And like she'd never heard it sung to music. But she thinks it's a bold song to sing, let alone dedicate to the royals. Um, just because of what it's about. But the royals don't like, obviously, the king doesn't like protest it or anything or say anything about
Hmm.
it, which is kind of, I guess, a bit surprising. And
But at the same time, like even if they did protest, they're not going to do it in front of everybody.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's a
it
celebration.
shows, yeah,
They're not going to be like, "Oh, hey, No, thank you. Play something else, right? They're gonna let her go, and they're gonna be gracious in that moment.
Yeah. But Celaena just kind of thinks that like Rena's voice can conquer a tyrant's heart and music has its own magic. And I'm like,
Mhm.
it's very naive of her based on what happens right after this.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just kind of interesting. Uh, the song, Celaena kind of thinks about what it's about, I guess, is of a fae woman blessed with power. And she was like super powerful and she was used by kingdoms, but they feared her. And her loneliness started to consume her. And then one day, a knight comes on behalf of his king. And on the way to the kingdom, they fall in love because he sees her for who she is and not just for her gift. So it's like a sweet story, but it's also all about magic. So that's why it
Mhm.
is a bit odd to dedicate it to the king. Celaena is moved by the music and she ends up crying. And her and Chaol hold hands under the table and they smile at each other and like stare into each other's eyes for like a gross amount of time. Like it was weird. But she thinks that he understands. How does he understand anything?
Yeah, because I guess she's seeing herself in this way because she's being used
Yeah,
by a king and by a kingdom and not seeing her for who she is. And like everybody does fear her and like people don't want to get close to her. So like
which is
she's
literally
seeing
what we
her,
just saw at this table. Yeah,
yeah, so like she is seeing herself in this poem, in this story, and I guess Chaol sort of recognizing that she is making the connections in her own life and like sort of trying to be like, I get it. I understand you.
yeah, and I guess like he is the one that like he asked her, "Oh, are you back to yourself now or are you
Still the assassin.
exactly." So, I guess he does kind of see her
Yeah,
just
I think he does get that there's a persona assassin and then there's real her.
mhm. It's just interesting cuz it's a complete 180 later on.
Do you know what surprises me? It surprises me that Dorian doesn't see this, given that he also has like a dual role to play. Like, there's Crown Prince Dorian that has to act a certain way in public and in the court and with his parents and towards the council members. And then there's actual Dorian who, like, just wants to
Likes
sit in
to
his room and
read.
read books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he doesn't see her her differences and how she put does her job, but then her job is not who she is.
Yes. I think the thing is he's struggling with that himself. Like he's struggling um to find his two personas. Like I don't think he has it locked in cuz he's struggling
Right.
to figure out who he is around his father other than just an obedient little boy because that's what he was raised to be and now he's trying to become he's trying to become a crown prince and do things that matter but he's also trying to juggle like the politics of it all. And I don't think he quite has his mask figured out. And I think he does develop that kind of in this book a bit. And I think it does help him understand Celaena a bit more later on. But yeah, that
Mhm.
is a really good point. Um, Speaking of Dorian, he's actually watching Celaena and Chaol as they
Not
stare into each other's eyes. And I'm like,
not
ugh.
creepy at all.
But I'm also like, just stop staring at each other. Like, ew. I don't like it. I just can't imagine like crying while listening to a song and staring into somebody's eyes instead of like watching the person that is making you feel so
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah.
Whatever. Uh, but Dorian just thinks like she's never looked at him like she's looking at Chaol. And he thinks that nothing has happened between them yet, but he knows that it likely will and like this is a step forward in Celaena and Chaol's relationship. And he
Them
just
staring at each
I
other.
know, I hate it. He decides in his head that he's going to move on
How many
And
times has he decided that now up to this
too
point?
many. But
Like,
I do like
friggin' do
this.
it.
I
Friggin'
know.
do it.
I know. It is exhausting, but I actually do like this one because he's like, he thinks she deserves a loyal, brave knight who sees her for who she is and doesn't fear her. And like, that's the important part. And I love that he thinks that because, like, he does fear her. He fears her persona of an assassin. And he kind
Mhm.
of, I think, fears her as an assassin in general, which he should. She's fucking badass.
Yeah.
Um, but like, it also, she does deserve somebody not to fear her. And I think like that moving into the next books in the series is very important.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's funny because as soon as you said "doesn't fear her," that's literally what I thought of is, the next couple of books moving forward. It
Yes.
wasn't this book that I was thinking of that.
No, but I loved that little, it's not even really an Easter egg, but it kind of
No.
is. Like,
Mm,
it's just important. And everybody deserves somebody who doesn't fear them, obviously. But like, most of us aren't assassins out there killing people
yeah,
and you
most
know.
of us aren't inherently scary, so
Exactly.
it's not as important of a distinction that we need to make.
Exactly. He also thinks that he deserves someone to look at him like she's looking at Chaol too, which is so true.
Yeah.
So I do like this moment that Dorian is having because I'm
Yeah.
like, that is true.
I also
Um,
I sorry, I also
that's great.
feel like we put the emphasis on, oh, the girl deserves this, the girl deserves that, like, but the guy deserves stuff equally as much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I appreciate him like for thinking this, but at the same time, I'm also like, dude, you've said you're gonna give her up and stop and like get over her like 5 times already. Like
Yeah.
fucking do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I'm also like, I liked the wording of this one.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And now we take a sad turn. Um,
Yes.
so it's hours later, and the king is in the dungeon as his secret guards. Like, who are his secret guards? We don't know anything about these secret guards.
Well, obviously they're probably no one that Kale knows.
Exactly, which is like,
He should know.
is Kale even anybody? Is he just the face of it? Like, it kind of makes his job seem redundant, which is not funny, but it is.
But like but seriously though, what does he even do?
I don't know.
Like isn't he like 19 years old and he's
I
captain of the
know.
Royal Guard? Like I can't like I in my head I'm just like there is no way the king promoted him to that position because he actually thought he was useful. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely just like a figurehead position. It was
Yeah.
definitely like just a I don't actually think you're going to help me. Like
Yeah.
I almost feel like he did it on purpose so that he could conduct his shady dealings and be like, "Man, this kid's too dumb to figure it out anyway."
Yeah. He's too naive to think I'm doing
Yeah.
anything like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think the same thing. Like, I also think it's part of the issue is probably that Sarah J. Maas wrote these books when she was so young because I'm like, you wouldn't have a captain of the guard at 19, and I'm like, maybe if she were to write them as an older, like if she wrote the books now, she might have just made him Dorian's personal guard or something, and then he's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
just as
yeah.
important, but like there's no way he'd be the captain of the guard.
No.
And especially he's never killed anybody, and then he lost his shit over killing somebody, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Mm,
And I know, like, obviously it's shitty to say. I don't want people to be killing people willy nilly here, but he is the captain of the guard for the king, who is a tyrant. You'd think he would have killed somebody.
mhm.
Anyway, that's just
Yeah.
a side rant. So
But
these
like
secret
but
guards.
I'm just at the same time though,
Yeah.
he can't just go around killing people and then be like, "Oh, can I be captain of the guard now?" Just
No,
to
but
like get
you
practice killing people.
no, you just think that he would have been in a situation where he would have had to kill somebody already. Is kind of what I mean. Like if you're a guard and I don't know, I just feel like what was his job before?
Mm,
You'd think he'd have to be on like some battlefields or something to figure, I don't know.
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know anything about how you get promoted to be a captain of a guard, but I think he missed.
I guess your dad should be a lord.
Yeah, I think, and you should be friends with the crown prince. I think he skipped a
Yeah.
few of the like main levels. Um,
Yeah.
but back to these secret guards, they haul Rena forward to a butcher's block, and it is already soaked with the blood of her companions, and their headless corpses are like lying nearby, which is great. What we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
The king kind of thinks about like Parrington and the Duke Parrington and Roland are there, which is interesting that Roland is there. And I think this is a bit of an Easter egg here that I can't really say too much about without spoiling. But clearly he knows more than we think he knows. And like
Yes.
anything, like maybe there is something going on that Dorian should be worried about. So it's
Yeah.
just interesting. Um, The king then tells Rena that it's punishable by death to speak of or encourage magic. And you can kind of tell that she was expecting this. And he asks her for any last words. And she says she worked for 10 years to become famous and get an invite to this castle so she could sing these songs. And then, as she's like bent over the butcher's block basically to be beheaded, she lists her dead, and it's like her daughter, sister, neighbors, like anybody that was killed because they had magic or they helped somebody that had magic. So it's just a really sad scene. And
Mm-hmm.
like you do know that like she expected this to happen, and I'm sure like she told her companions that it was likely going to happen, but it's just kind of shows a bit of the naivete that Celaena had earlier when she was like, "Oh, the king is gonna let this go." Like you'd think she would know better because like her entire
Yeah.
kingdom was conquered.
It also, in my mind, shows a really it shows how far the king is willing to go to squash this. I don't even this was technically a form of rebellion, and it was just a
Hmm.
song. So it's
Yeah.
showing us how far the king is willing to go to squash any type of rebellion, right?
Yes.
So,
That's a
and
good
really
point.
how much of a tyrant he really is, how
Yeah.
much of a sociopath he is,
Yeah.
that he's going to kill someone just for a song.
Yeah.
Cuz
Exactly.
I don't think we've actually gotten him being an asshole. Like we've had him being an asshole, but sort of all in the name of his kingdom sort of a thing.
Yeah, and
And
it hasn't ever been him. And like still, obviously
no.
he's not the one that chops her head off, but he is there. Like but most of the time we hear of like him sending his men to do things and like that kind of stuff.
Um So, I guess we skip to the next morning, and Celaena and Nehemia are having breakfast together. So, these mornings are really the only time they get to spend together. And once again, Nehemia is sort of judging Celaena for working for the king, and like sort of indicating because we all know that Celaena is doing this for her freedom, and she sort of expresses that, and they've had moments before where
Hmm.
Celena's like, I just want my freedom, I that's all I want. And Nehemia is being like, is your freedom really worth all of this, really worth you working for this asshole, and you not helping me because help not sorry and you not helping me sort of try and rebel and try and spy and try and save people, is your freedom really worth all this?
Hmm.
And it's just another indication of Nehemia not understanding Celaena is not understanding who she really is.
Yeah.
Like, this is apparently one of her closest friends, and she legit thinks she's really doing this.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, I don't know. If you came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I need to kill a bunch of people in order to like survive," like, I wouldn't question that you would do the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's super hurtful that Nehemia doesn't sort of think that Celaena is a good person.
Yeah, I agree. You'd also help me bury the bodies, but
Oh, 100% I would. Guaranteed. Um But so Nehemia thinks that Celaena's soul is like rotted away, and that she is selfish for not questioning any of the king's decisions and for just obeying them, and is sort of um, I don't know. She's just like saying like with each order you obey, your soul is rotting away even more. You are becoming a terrible person, which is sort of like, whoa, like chill out. We're just having breakfast.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's very aggressive. Like I feel like I would just
Yes.
stop hanging out with her and stop talking to her because she just makes Celaena, like obviously we're in Selena's head. She just makes her feel bad about herself all the time. Like, what
Yeah.
are you even supposed to do with that?
Yeah. Um, but yeah, like it's just brutal. So Celaena sort of argues like, haven't I suffered enough to deserve my freedom? And like, yes, absolutely she has. And I will say Nehemia sort of agrees with her there. And I do like the point that she makes. She says, like, she also points out that so many other people have also suffered and are still suffering, and they aren't selling themselves to the king or betraying anyone. So,
Yeah.
like, I appreciate that, but also a lot of these people that have suffered and are still suffering don't have the chance. You know what
Yes,
I mean? Like, if
that's
they were
true.
given the chance to earn their freedom or to end their suffering, would they?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think a lot more people would than Nehemia is giving sort of credit for.
I also think that she's she's just going about this the wrong way. And I know she's also a young person too. It's not like
Mhm.
she knows the best way to get somebody on your side for a rebellion, but like she's too aggressive and too earnest towards Celaena, and
Yeah.
it's just not in Selena's personality to respond to that other than to feel guilt and shame. And that's
Mhm.
not going to get her on your side.
No. Um anyway, so she also sort of says that like with each person that Celaena kills, it's getting harder to justify being her friend. And she sort of pulls then her family
Yeah.
into it and is like, how can I explain to my parents and to my siblings that like you are a good friend of mine and you're going around assassinating the king's enemies? And this moment sort of I'm a little bit mad that Celaena does this because she ends up like telling Nehemia the truth. I
Hmm.
guess this moment of her being like, like her threatening essentially to take her friendship away and being like, I don't even know why we're friends right now. This makes Celaena tell her, I'm not really killing people. And that sort of bothers me because I feel like
Yeah.
Nehemia has not trusted her and has not been a true friend to warrant earning this trust. Like, this is a
Yeah, I
huge
agree.
secret for Celaena that could get her killed, could get her friends killed, could get everyone she cares about killed. And I don't feel Nehemia has earned her trust. So it bothers me that she gives in and tells her. But she does tell her the truth that she hasn't killed anyone and she's instead been faking their deaths and helping them flee. And Nehemia is like, okay, well, what about this Archer dude that is next on your list? And Celaena says, like, I gave him a deal. He's got a month to find me details on the rebellion, and then I'm gonna help him flee as well. And she also decides because they're in Celaena's room, so she also decides to tell Nehemia about Elena's tomb, and she brings her down to the tomb to meet Mort, the door knocker.
Yeah.
I
I have
know.
such a soft spot for him, but I also think he's a fucking asshole to
I know.
Celaena.
Yeah,
But
he
like,
is.
I have a soft spot for him.
I know. He's been alone
um,
so long. He probably just doesn't have any people skills.
it's true. Um, I feel bad for Celaena in this situation because I feel like she is so desperate for a friend that she is letting herself be bullied basically by Nehemia. And that's the only reason that she's told her any of this, is because she doesn't want to lose the one connection
Mm,
she has who is like similar to her. They both come from like conquered nations, and like I feel like this is very, maybe Nehemia is just manipulating her.
mm. Yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
she is doing the right thing and getting Celaena to do, but it's just wild.
yeah. Anyway, so Celaena sort of notices for the first time on the floor there's a bunch of star shapes like carved into the floor that make up different constellations. So there's a dragonfly, there's a wyvern, which is the symbol of Adarlan, and there's also a stag, which is the symbol of Terrasim, which is her home country. And the stag figure constellation is looking in a certain direction, which causes her to look towards that direction, and she sees an eye etched in the wall, and there's a little puncture mark through the eye. So she goes towards it and ends up stepping on the constellation, and then a face like appears on the wall, like with the eye to make like a full face.
Hmm.
And then if she steps off of the constellation, the whole face disappears and it's just the eye left. So she sort of looks through the eye hole and hopes to see something, but all she sees is like a wall. There's nothing there. And she asks Mort about it. She's like, "Hey, like what's going on here?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know." But she like thinks he's lying.
Yeah.
But he tells her like you have to ask the right questions. And she sort of is like, "Well, okay, what are the right questions?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm not telling you that. Like, come back." And it's just another thing where I'm really frustrated. Like, just tell her what she needs to know. If
Yeah.
you want her
Like,
to figure shit out, tell her.
yeah,
Instead of making her go through all of these steps to try and figure
exactly.
it
And
out.
like they want her to be like a savior type person, but they're not helping her. Like, are they
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, she needs to be smart enough to do, like, is this a test? Like, I just don't really understand the point of it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's stupid. They need to just tell her the information she needs. So, there's also apparently like a bunch of word marks everywhere, and Nehemia's like, "Oh my god, there's word marks everywhere," and she's really amazed by them. So Celaena asks her like, "Can you teach me to read them?" So they decide they're gonna have word mark lessons instead of going on their morning walks. Celaena asks Nehemia to like teach her how to read the word marks. So they go back up the stairs, and she even then tells Nehemia more. Like she's just telling her everything. Tells her about the riddle that she found in Davis's book that had the word marks on it. That you said it is only with the eye that one can
Mm-hmm.
see rightly. And she sort of thinks back, like she sort of thinks, oh, that eye downstairs. Like I wonder if this has something to do with it. And Nehemia's like, nah. And then she's like, oh, well, maybe my amulet could have something to do with it because that's Elena's eye. Like
Makes sense.
that's what it's called, right? It's her eye. And Nehemia is also like, nah, that's too easy. And like she has to work really hard to convince Celaena that no, you're
Yeah.
reading too much into stuff. But like eventually Celena's like, yeah, no, you're probably right. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like I I would try it at least. Like
Yeah, there's no harm in at least trying.
yeah, so it's like I don't know, it's sort of like I don't know. It's just sort of like instead of shutting her down, try it.
I feel like Nehemia is like trying too hard to get her off of this riddle. And like it's obvious, but it's
Mhm.
not obvious to Celaena.
Well,
But it's obvious to the reader that like she's hiding something. She knows something else. Like,
but also I guess too like if your friend is if you have a friend that you think is really smart and can read the language on the wall and they're telling you, no, don't worry about it. You're wrong. You're off base. It must be something else. Like, you would sort of agree, especially if you trust her.
yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit shady.
It is shady. And they've said that they're never going to lie to each other again.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Anyway, so Archer then at this moment sends Celaena a letter with names of people who are possibly involved in the rebel movement. And it's just really funny because he just literally sends her a list of names like in a letter, and she's like, I really need to teach this guy about sending stuff in code because like
Yeah.
what a moron. Anybody could read that letter.
Well,
Um
and then, like, what if it got into the hands of the people that he's betraying?
yeah.
Like, they would lose their shit at him.
Yeah.
He would die.
Yes.
So maybe don't teach him that.
Good point. So she spends the day, I'm gonna say, haunting them, like tailing them and like watching all these people and like learning who they are and learning their habits, but like she doesn't really get anywhere with it. Like they're just people going about their days. So like nothing suspicious. She gets back to the palace and the king wants her on guard duty again at a royal ball. So she's stationed on the balcony again, and she's really cranky because she doesn't see the point to her being there. She's annoyed with the whole like riddle thing that she can't figure out. She's annoyed with having to tail people all day and it not doing anything for her. And so Chaol is on edge because he knows he's cranky because she's cranky, essentially.
Yeah. Which, like, I don't really get why the king is telling her to do this.
Do you know what I think?
Yeah,
And
I don't, but tell me.
like, and it's something I just thought of. I wonder if he wants her there so that she's distracted so that his secret guards can do like shady shit.
Yeah, that's true. Makes
I
sense.
don't know. Because like I feel like if anybody could figure shit out it would be her.
Yeah.
And like he just wants everybody distracted. You can't have an assassin who's super sneaky and super good at stuff like left to their own devices wandering the castle willy-nilly.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, the royal ball is for Holland. Like, they're celebrating his return very extravagantly. And
Hmm.
Chaol sort of like knows that he's a really big spoiled brat. And when he's an adult, he'll be an even more spoiled brat. And he'll be a terrible adult and an asshole. Um,
Yeah.
and he sees Celaena just like left her post and he's like really pissed off. So he like stomps out to go find her and just sees that she's like dancing by herself on the balcony, which is super cute.
It is cute.
And he's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I just wanted to forget everything for a second and just be normal." And
Just sweet.
it is sweet. And she's like thinking he's going to tear her a new one and like chew her out. And instead he shocks her by um asking her to dance. And at first she's like she's sort of like dumbfounded, like, what? Really? But they dance and she says she can't stop staring into his eyes.
Again.
I just think that's so awkward to just like
Agreed.
stare, like make eye contact with someone for that long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I
So
would just start laughing.
yeah, agreed. So
Gross.
it says that like they move together flawlessly and they never stumble and their gaze never breaks from one another, so like almost like they were made to fit each other and like almost like they've been dancing together their whole lives is what sort of is like they just belong together, which is lovely, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
It is. I'm just so bitter.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And Celaena sort of realizes in this moment that looking at him actually makes her feel at home. So like he is her home,
That's sweet.
I guess.
Yeah. I'm trying to be a better person towards him during this book.
For
I'm
now.
trying. Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
So anyway, Dorian is watching them again. Super creep.
So awkward.
From the window, and I guess Nehemia sees that and comes over to talk to him. And she sort of tells him, like, don't interrupt them. And I don't think he was planning on it.
No.
Anyway, and she's like, tells him like they're royalty, him and her. So they stand apart and they have responsibilities that regular people wouldn't want. So
It's true.
yeah, 100%. And he tells her, he's like, I've decided to move on again.
Yeah.
So like, if he's decided to move on, stop staring at them.
Yeah. I feel like it probably feels a bit like a betrayal because like Chaol is his best friend. That's the only thing I can also see, but still, it's getting annoying.
Yeah, like it's been months. It's been 3
Yeah.
months since they broke up, and you're only now deciding to move on,
Yeah.
dude. Anyway, Nehemia also sort of says to Dorian that the council has decided to expand Calicula, and they're voting at the next meeting, and she's not allowed to attend. And she wants him to speak on her behalf, but he refuses. And she then asks, like, I guess they have a little bit of a back and forth. He doesn't want to sort of upset his father. He doesn't want to overstep. But like, she's trying to be like, this is a slave, like this is, like people are dying, this is inhumane treatment.
Hmm.
And I guess to sort of bring the point home, she asks him like, if Celaena was sent to Calicula, would you shut down the camp and rescue her? And he says yes, but it's complicated. And she says, but it's not, because there are just as many people on this earth who love people in those camps just as much as he loves Celaena, that want their people back. And that there's a right and there's a wrong. And she's right. Of course she's right.
Yeah.
Like, and it sort of brings home the fact that he went to Endovier and got Celaena, but he didn't spare a glance at anybody else.
Hmm. Well, I feel like he thought that like they all deserved to be here
Mm,
because like he is a bit brainwashed by his dad too.
yeah. Anyway, so it sort of gets him thinking a little bit, and as sort of a last sort of impression on him, Nehemia tells him that there's power in him. And she traces a symbol on his chest and tells him that when it wakes up, she will help him. I'm wondering, like, was that a word mark?
I I think so, but I don't think it expedited anything. Like I don't think that this, you know what I mean?
Because he says that she walks away, and he thinks that when she did that and said those words, something ancient and deep opened within him.
Yeah. I don't know. I like obviously there was something already because I think in my part he talked about he woke up and there was frost
Right.
like in an outline of his body. Um but I don't know what it is.
And
Maybe
like,
it was something. I think it was probably something to help him, but I don't know how.
yeah, because like we've already established that word marks are ancient magic, so they still work.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question. And like we don't get anything else on it ever. So
Yeah,
that part's kind of sad.
yeah. So that's the end of that. That's the end of the ball. Nothing else really happens. Celaena and Chaol stop dancing, go back to their posts. That's the end of that. Next
Hmm.
morning, Celaena is at Archer's house. And she says that she can't stop thinking about Chaol and the dance that they did from the night before. So much so that she was distracted that morning during her word mark lesson. Um, she's like waiting for Archer in his like sitting room, I guess. He's not even home. I guess he was out with a client for the night, so he just comes in. And it's really funny because he's like, "Oh, just give me a few minutes to freshen up," considering he's literally coming home from, like, sex. And she's
Yeah.
like, "No."
Which is rude.
Yeah. She's like, "No, you can't." She says she needs more than a list of names. And he sort of tells her, like, "I need more time." And she's like, "You don't have more time. You don't have it. This is it."
No.
And,
Like, the
like,
king wants you dead.
yeah,
Like, she can't just not do her job.
exactly. So she then says to him, she's like, "You have 6 days to get me something useful or I will kill you." And I think she's being fair because she has already had to sort of wiggle a month from the king. Like, I don't think he would have given her much more time than that.
No, I
So,
don't
like,
think so at all. And, like, I feel she's also not trying to, like, like, deal with the king more than she has to.
mhm.
So, like, she's not going to set up a meeting with the king to be like, hey, so I need an extension on
Yeah.
that project you gave me. Like, it's not like going to talk to a fucking teacher asking for an extension. It's the king, and he will just kill her
Yeah.
and everyone she likes.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially she's like 6 days or else.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. So skip over to Dorian's POV. He's in the council meeting that Nehemia was talking about Calicula. And Dorian is like shocked at how many slaves are in Calicula right now, and they're still talking about expanding it. Apparently there's like another mine like half a mile down the road or something that they can open up um and use. And he notices that Roland and Parrington and the king, his father, they all have matching black rings on.
Ooh,
So he thinks
what a
like,
fashion choice.
yes, yes, fashion choice. And he's sort of like thinking like how Roland ingratiated himself with Parrington and the king so quickly, and like what kind of a secret club are they all in? Hmm.
Yeah.
So Roland is talking about expanding the mine, and Dorian sort of like starts to speak up. He's like asking like, "Well, where will we shelter them? Where will they live?" And they're all like, "Well, they'll just stay in the mines, because why build separate housing for them when we can just keep them in the mines with shelter and then they can work more?" And
Yeah.
Dorian is sort of like, he's finally seeing how like crazy this is, and they're talking about
Yeah.
humans, like people.
Hmm.
Um, and so Dorian realizes like Nehemia was right. He needs to speak up, so he does. And he's,
Good for him.
yeah, good for him. He does, like, he speaks up and he says like, "No, we shouldn't be doing this." And his father gets pissed and threatens to kick him out of the meeting. And I guess they have a little bit of a back and forth, and Dorian gets so angry, he like erupts and he just says like, "You want my vote? Well, I vote hell no."
Yeah.
And then he just storms out of the meeting. And I appreciate him for doing that, but at the same time, like, I feel like he should have been a bit more diplomatic.
Well, he also should have stayed. Like, what
Yeah.
if they're just like, well, the thorn in our side is gone. Let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is my thing. Like, kind of when I was saying he hasn't set up like who he is. He's two different people in front of his father. He's either the obedient child or he's like struggling to fight back, but he doesn't know how. He hasn't figured out the politics of it and he doesn't know how to do it. And like, I think half of that is because his father doesn't want him to figure out how to talk back to him. So I don't know.
Yeah. And like, so what if he voted no? If everybody else votes yes, like, it can still go ahead.
Yeah,
So I just feel like he needed to try and be a little bit more persuasive and like political.
agreed.
Anyway, so he says that he feels this like freezing cold that fuels his rage as he walks through the castle. And he's not really paying attention to where he's going, but he ends up in like the older section, because I think we talked in the last book how the castle is like a mixture of the old castle that's sort of made of traditional stone and whatever, and then you've got
Mm-hmm.
the new section that's all made of glass. So he's stormed around through it, and he doesn't really know where he is. He's in the older section, though. And he's so mad that he punches a wall. And he's like, that should have broke my hand, but it didn't.
Yeah.
But the stone cracked under his hand and spiderwebbed to like a nearby window. And then all of a sudden the window shattered / exploded in towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes him freak out, rightfully so, because he's like, that's not really possible. My hand should have been broken. And like, there's no way I'm strong enough to crack stone.
Yeah. Makes sense. True story.
And then, in addition to all that, the debris from the window that came at him made a perfect circle around him, not touching him.
Yeah, that is. That's something.
Yeah.
That means something, probably.
Yeah. And like, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, he needs to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he needs to know if what's in his body.
Yes.
So,
Know yourself. Know thy body.
yeah. Anyway, so he's like thinking, he's like, it made a perfect circle around him. That sort of indicates, like, obviously broken glass would never do that without some form of magic. But he's like,
Yeah.
magic doesn't exist. So like that realization that he has magic but magic doesn't exist makes him vomit, makes him sick.
Mm-hmm.
So skip. So now back to Celaena's POV. So we don't hear anything else from Dorian apart from him being like, bleh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Celaena that night is in Chaol's room just hanging out. Apparently she doesn't love being in her room anymore, knowing that like Elena's tomb is sort of below her. So she hangs out in his room and she says that she wants cake. I'm like, I also want cake. I wish somebody was here that could get me a piece of cake.
Agreed.
So he teases her about it. And it's like, cake? Geez, like, you're gonna have to start running extra, which is sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, this is a bit of a older like I feel this is a product of the time the book came out. Yeah. I don't think she would write that now.
No. Anyway, so she asks him, she's like, what are you talking about? Like, haven't I earned the right to eat whatever I want? And he's like, actually, yes, you have. So he goes and she's like, well, where are you going? And he's like, I'm going to get you that cake. So he actually does go and get her the cake, which is sweet.
It is sweet.
So later on, like they've shared a little bit of the cake and she's looking at him. He fell asleep on the couch and she sort of sees that he's good and honorable, and in a world without the king, they might actually be able to have a life together. And like that life is one that she wanted. So, but that means that somebody would have to get rid of the king.
Maybe that's the issue here. Maybe someone should just kill the king.
Yeah.
No king, la 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 la.
Anyway. So then she starts thinking maybe the rebels and the army that Aelin Galathinius was raising would have some answers. And like maybe they're already planning on killing the king. So like maybe she just has to sit back and like wait.
Yeah.
So she grabs the rest of the cake to bring back to her room to keep eating it.
I love that. I love that she's just like, I'm taking this to my room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But before she leaves, she like brushes Chaol's cheek, like, you know, runs her finger along it in a tender way. And as she's like going back to her room, Dorian is sitting in the hall, like next to her door. Mm-hmm. And he said that he was looking for Nehemia and thought maybe she was here. And Celaena's like, nope, not here. And then she's like, she's like, hey, is something wrong? And initially he was going to tell her what happened with, you know, the circle and all that. But then he doesn't and says nothing is wrong. And then he leaves her.
I feel bad here. Like I wanted him to go in and eat some cake with her and them to like, and I know Like their relationship later on does develop more into a friendship, so like I'm okay with it. But I did want them to have this moment too.
Yeah.
And not romantic at all, completely platonically.
Oh yeah. But I feel like he needs someone to talk to, and
Mm-hmm.
I wish he had picked Celaena, but at the same time, like, so I know she would keep his secret, but I don't think she would be able to help him.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree.
So I just like, I feel like Nehemia is really the only one he could have spoken to about this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he just leaves her. She's like, cool, and goes into her room to eat cake. The next day, Chaol is in the throne room, giving the king yesterday's report. I don't think anything happened. He says that he's thinking that he was awake when Celaena brushed his face, and apparently he got so hot and bothered by her touching his face that he wanted to jump her, like haul her down on the couch and like ravish her.
Jesus
And I'm just
fucking
like, really?
Christ.
From a face touch? That's what did it for you?
And like she was being sweet, if
Yeah.
anything. Like it wasn't like like a I don't know. It was a sweet moment of like, thank you for getting cake for
Yeah.
me and not being an asshole.
And like here she is like thinking about a life and a future with him, and he's like, I want to jump your bones. But at the same time, like, it almost makes me wonder if half of their relationship is sort of just unfulfilled physical attraction.
Hmm. True. Well, like Celaena was in mines for a year and didn't have any connections with anybody really
Mm-hmm.
because she couldn't. So like which is why I think she's so attached to Nehemia as a friend, because she probably went days without talking to anybody at all during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So like I do think some of it probably is just they find each other attractive and they're 19.
Yeah.
Horny little teenagers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess the king manages to get his attention enough to tell him that Princess Nehemia needs to be watched, because the king has been sent word that there's an anonymous threat on her life. And Chaol's like, I haven't heard that. And the
Yeah.
king's like, no, you haven't. So it's like, if I was Chaol, I'd sort of be like, how did you hear that? Like, are your sources not my sources?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who is feeding you
100%.
this?
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
No.
Chaol initially then says, like, okay, like, we'll double her guard and we'll make her aware. And the king is like, no, don't. Because he says, like, maybe she'll make herself a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just gonna say,
Yeah. That's fair.
like, let's remember this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Chaol sort of agrees not to tell her, and the king's like, you can't tell anybody, and sort of knows that he means you can't tell Celaena.
Yeah.
And he agrees, even though he knows in his head, like, Celaena will be really pissed if he doesn't tell her, especially
Yeah.
since, like, this is her closest friend. But he sort of says, like, he already feels like he's losing his position and, like, he's not being trusted with things just by being close to her. So, like, he says he doesn't want to make any more concessions because, like, he feels like he's losing his position and, like, losing himself.
Yeah. Which I understand what he's saying, but when someone's life is on the line, it's a bit different, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, so flip to Dorian's POV again. He's training with the guards and he's trying to come up with like a rational explanation for what happened, because he says that like magic is gone for one, and it's also been dormant in the Havyard bloodline for centuries. So like no one in his family has had magic anyway for a really long
Mm-hmm.
time. So he doesn't understand what's going on. Um Roland approaches him and asks him to spar, like, hey, want to spar with me? And Dorian's like, no, like, you don't want to be around me right now. I'm in a bad mood. And Roland actually extends like a nice olive branch and says, like, I'm apologizing. I'm really sorry about the camp issue, like the whole Calicula thing. He says he never would have suggested the expansion if he'd known that Dorian was opposed to it. And apparently he called the whole thing off after Dorian stormed out. Um and Dorian doesn't really believe him or trust him.
Which is probably good.
It is, yeah. But Roland sort of says like all the right things, and Dorian's like, well, maybe he's just been taken in by my father and by Parrington, and he just needs someone to steer him in a better direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. So like, I feel like there's a little bit of manipulation happening here.
Definitely.
So I guess Dorian and Roland sort of part ways, and Dorian doesn't really know what to do, so he goes for a walk in the courtyard where there's a carnival that's being set up, like a traveling carnival. And apparently this carnival was a Yulemas present, like a belated Yulemas present for Holland from his mother. So again, we're getting a lot of celebrations here for you, Holland.
Yeah.
So he runs into Chaol and Celaena out there, and apparently it's like a really awkward, uncomfortable interaction. So he says that like the night before, when he had been sitting outside Celaena's room, he told her that he wanted to find Nehemia, but really he wanted to see Celaena, but the look on her face, like he could tell that she had wanted to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And like that she looked like sort of happy, and he didn't want to like add a burden to her or spoil anything for her, so he just left, which is like, it's sad.
It is really sad. They're like 2 stars, and they're just never in the same place.
Yeah.
They're always missing.
Anyway, but yeah, so they start like working their way through the tents, looking around until they encounter a woman offering to sell them their futures. And the woman has razor sharp iron teeth. And in the book, it describes it like a fish. Like the teeth are iron sharp razor teeth like a fish. But like, I didn't
just think of piranha.
Oh, I guess. I was going to say, like, I didn't realize fish had teeth.
Sharks are fish.
I guess, yeah. But like, I'm trying to, like, when I think of piranhas, I think of really small, because they're small fish. So I think of really small little pointy teeth that like they don't fit together like perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's a few in there, but like I also feel like there are spaces between.
Yeah. I guess I've never really thought about what the iron teeth look like, but after that description, all I think is piranha. Mm-hmm. With the spaces and all, like tiny teeth and spaces and
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I just thought it was a funny, like, not like a shark, not like, you know, a wolf or a tiger or a lion or anything like that, a fish.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they insinuate that this woman is from the fallen witch kingdom who tried to overthrow the peaceful Croshen witches. Croshen? Kraken? Oh. Who tried to overthrow the peaceful Kraken witches, and when they had defeated all but the Kraken queen, she cursed them. As long as the iron teeth banners flew, no soil would yield life to them. Which, I mean, like, they should just be able to buy food.
It's true.
Like, so what? You can't grow your own? Eh.
Also, later on, when we hear about their diet, they're probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, so essentially these are like, it was like good witches versus evil witches, and the evil witches won, but now they're cursed. So this specific witch's name is Baba Yellowlegs. and she asks to tell them their futures. And Dorian says that he looks over and Celaena genuinely looks frightened. And
Mm-hmm.
Dorian finds that really weird that she's like, I guess he's never actually seen her fully scared.
Which makes sense. She's the scary one in the room most of the time.
Yeah. But like, I don't think we know enough about the witches as of yet, because obviously we just met
Mm-hmm.
them, to
Yeah.
understand why Celaena is afraid.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway, so the Baba Yellowlegs witch, she knows things about them, and they sort of have like a terse exchange before like the Celaena, Dorian, and Chaol sort of walk away. Like they don't want to engage. Um. But Celaena thinks in her head that she's heard stories about the Iron Teeth witches, and she says that she felt like a sense of otherness from the crone, she calls her, like the old crone. So
Mm.
she knows that this lady is the real deal. Like she's not, she says that sometimes people pretend to be Iron Teeth witches to like for the
Mm-hmm.
reputation and just for the theater of it. So they just put like the false teeth in over their real teeth. But she knows that this lady is the real deal.
Yeah.
And she said that when she was standing in front of the lady's wagon, all she wanted to do was go inside. She said she felt this pull. And she also noticed that the witch was wearing a crown of stars. Hmm. Which I'd
Interesting.
love to get your thoughts on.
My thoughts on the Crown of Stars?
Yeah.
Like what it looks like,
Well,
or what we think it
what we
is,
think it is.
or oh, I think the first time I read it, I didn't even notice. But like we do find out what it is later.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly think I didn't even notice it, and like even this read, I don't think I realized that she was wearing it.
Yeah.
But like it's definitely like fancy for for somebody at a carnival.
Yeah.
Like it seems like out of place. That's what I think about it.
Anyway, so she also noticed that her amulet started to feel heavy and warm, which is always a bad sign. When her amulet starts
Mm-hmm.
to get heavy and warm or starts to glow or anything like that, bad things are coming.
It's true.
So she decides in her mind that she's gonna go back and investigate the witch some more because she thinks that that's suspicious. It's sus.
Mm-hmm.
The
It's true.
witch is sus. So they all walk then to the stables, and Dorian presents Chaol with a gift for his birthday, which is in 2 days. Which
Ooh.
is nice actually because they haven't really been super close lately. So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
happy that Dorian remembered his birthday and is still celebrating it, even though their relationship has not been the same.
Yeah.
It's a black Asterian stallion, which is just a really
Sounds cool as fuck.
yeah, it's just a real fancy horse. And
Yeah.
Chaol does not want to accept it.
Well, yeah. They're like super expensive too.
Yeah.
So like I get his reluctance, but
I mean,
also it's a gift. He's a prince.
yeah.
Take it.
Your best friend is a prince. I feel like you can expect some extravagant shit.
Exactly.
The three of them are having like this really normal exchange. Like, Celaena tells them about the time she like stole an Asterian horse um and like it just feels really normal for a hot minute. And until Dorian asks Chaol if he has plans for his birthday, like his actual birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And Celaena blurts out, like, yeah, we have plans. Like, we have plans.
I
And
hate it.
like, it sort of, she specifies later that she, like, not later, but she specifies in her head that, like, she wasn't trying to sound mean when she said it
Mm-hmm.
that way, but she says that she's been planning it for weeks and it's sort of just meant for her and Chaol, and it sort of just turns all their interaction from like comfortable to awkward again. So
Yeah. It's just I just don't know why she had to say it like that. And I know she's even like, oops, it didn't mean to say it like
yeah,
that. But I'm like, you're being rude.
yeah, yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I feel like even if she did be like, we have plans, she could have been like, oh, I mean, yeah, I got a little something planned, like nothing too, you know what I mean? She could have recovered.
Yeah. And even like, I feel like I would also want Chaol to tell him that he has plans. I wouldn't be like, no, I'm monopolizing all of his time on his birthday. Like, he could have been like, oh, maybe we should do breakfast together
Yeah.
or go for a walk in the park together.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's a bit overbearing.
Well, like Dorian is literally his best friend for years and years and years. Celaena has known him for like what, 6, 7 months. And she's like,
Yeah.
he's mine on his birthday.
Yeah. And like, for the first half of that amount of time, he wanted to hate her. So
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, so thanks, Celaena. So after this like sort of awkwardness, she goes back to her room alone and she thinks about that eye in the tomb and how like even though Nehemia said that it wasn't connected, that the eye, her amulet seems like it would perfectly fit in this eye.
Mhm.
And like maybe she should go back and try it. So she does. And the eye does sort of fit, but nothing happens. I guess she sort of expected, like we all would, like sort of like a video game, like you would expect to solve the puzzle, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and she asks Mort about it and asks if the riddle, like it is only with the eye that you could see rightly or whatever, references something behind that wall. And he says yes, but she still isn't asking the right questions. What's the right question then, Mort?
More frustration. Thanks, Mort.
Yeah.
You're an
Yeah.
asshole.
Anyway, so she like storms off again. She's like pissed off. And that night she dreams of a white stag and she's perched on the edge of this ravine and the stag wants her to join him on the other side, but the ravine is too wide for her to cross. So she
Mhm.
doesn't. And so the stag just walks away. And apparently she said that on her way to Endovier in the carriage, like the prison carriage, she apparently saw the same stag, like in real life. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering what the significance of that is.
Of the stag in general,
No, because
or
the stag in general, we know the stag is a symbol of her home country, Terracin. But like
yeah,
the significance that she saw the same stag on her way to Endovier in person.
yeah. I wonder if that was like, so she sees it. So a spoiler here for who she is. So maybe skip ahead 30 seconds. But she sees. I think she sees it on the day her parents died because they were the king and queen of Terrasen. Like, I think that's why she always sees the stag this day in her dream. But I think maybe she saw it when she was in the prison wagon as like a you're on the right path, even if it feels like this is not the right path
Hmm,
type of like, I think it was kind of to give her hope because obviously she was going to a slave camp.
right.
That's kind of how I would think, but I don't know.
No, I like that. That's a good. Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
You're a genius.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, so she woke up in the middle of the night after that dream, and she thinks about how she always has this exact same dream on this particular night, and how she can never forget that this is the night that everything was taken from her, and the night she woke up covered in blood that wasn't hers. So we know already that her parents died during the night. They were murdered, and she couldn't sleep that night, so she went into their room to cuddle up with them. She felt the wet, but thought that it was rain from an open window. And then she woke
Hmm.
up in the morning to find that no, she had been sleeping in their blood all night, which is like, it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, it's devastating.
Yeah.
It's absolutely awful.
Uh, so she leaves the castle in the middle of the night. Like, she can't handle this dream. The next morning, Chaol is waiting for her to go for their run, and he's annoyed because she hasn't shown up. And he's sort of thinking, like, just because it's cold out doesn't mean she can like laze around in her room. Like she has to come and train.
He has a tendency to think really badly of her. Like when she asked for cake, he was like, "You're gonna have to run more." When she didn't show up, he's like, "Oh, it's she can't just stay because it's cold."
Yeah.
Like he's not. He never really gives her the benefit of the doubt on
Mm-mm.
anything, and like that's not a healthy relationship, in my opinion.
Nope. Anyway, so he finds Nehemia actually in Celaena's room, and I'm like, isn't that a bit odd?
Yeah, I
Like,
think that's odd.
like if Nehemia, like I'm assuming that Nehemia also went to Celaena's room to meet her for breakfast. Realized she wasn't
For
there
their
for their
Yeah, for
lesson.
their lessons.
Realized she wasn't there. Why would you
Hmm.
then stay for tea in her room? Why not go back to your room for tea?
I don't know.
Anyway.
It is odd. Maybe she was like waiting for Kale to show up to be like, "Hey, she's not being a piece of shit. You are
Maybe.
a piece of shit."
Anyway, so yeah, so he finds Nehemia in the room and she's drinking tea and she tells him Celaena isn't here. Uh and Chaol sort of like, "Oh, where is she?" And Nehemia's like, if I were to guess, she's as far away from this city as she can possibly get today. And Chaol's like, well, why? And
Hmm.
Nehemia drops the bomb that it is the 10th anniversary of her parents' death. So she always has the exact same dream on the anniversary of her parents' death, which is heartbreaking and awful. And now she's like living
Yeah.
in the city that killed her parents. So, like, yeah, she's trying to get as far out of the city as she can. And I'm just going to leave this here. So, like, how is it that Nehemia knows this and Chaol does not?
Hmm. Yeah. And like she had left a note, but I'm sure she didn't say in the note, "Hey, my parents died 10 years ago today. Peace out."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like Nehemia knows more than she's saying.
Yes. Yes, I think that is the case. So, but yeah, so that is actually where we are stopping today with this revelation that her parents died 10 years ago. Um, so yeah, so we are done for the day. But yeah, I guess I'm really looking forward to talking a bit more about Nehemia, I think, in the next week. I wish we would get a little bit more of she's very mysterious and I wish that was
Hmm.
opening up a little bit more, but I feel like this is the type of book that is going to literally reveal and not even all the secrets, but the last week is going to reveal like so many mysteries to us.
Hmm. And like they keep going to the second last book in the series, and by second last, I don't mean Tower of Dawn. Um,
I don't think anybody thought you meant Tower of Dawn.
no, but yeah, there's like so many different pieces, and yeah, definitely there's more than meets the eye to a lot in this book.
Hmm.
So
Like
interesting.
it's funny because this book, like out of the six, this is probably, and yeah, I'm not including Tower of Dawn. Out of the
Yeah.
six, this is probably like my least favorite, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
However, this book actually sets up so many of the dominoes for the
Yes, I'll
rest of
agree
the
to that
series.
completely.
So like I don't know why I dislike it so much when it's setting everything up for us.
Well, I know why you dislike it because a certain character is not in it.
But like that's not even that but not really. Like I'm sure it's helpful, but like it's not the main like even when I read it and you said the same thing. You found it originally hard to get through this book when you first read them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder why.
I,
Like I can't articulate why.
yeah. I just it's so hard to decide now because I am jaded towards Kale. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't think I disliked him the first time I read it, but like every time I read it now, I'm like, ugh, I don't care. Shut the fuck up. Which is bad. But that's why I find it hard to read it now for sure. But it is like these two books, you don't really get into the guts of the story until the next book. And I think that's like really obvious because like we were talking about this book and we were like, what even happens in this book? Like
Yes.
before we started rereading it, we were like, what, what is the point?
Yeah.
Basically, like what is happening? I don't remember this book at all. Like it's not significant when you think about the storyline, I think.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, I guess we should wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions for us, please email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
So next week we will be reading chapters 21 to 33 of obviously Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you listen. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next page.